Truth Unveiled here, keeping you updated with the world around you. And as you can see, Venezuela has just run out of money. And this is the third time I'm reporting on Venezuela. The first time was the food and water crises, and the second time was the government shutdown. And now this. I hope you're seeing it. Things are getting from bad to worse, literally days and days apart. But I'm here at Zero Hedge, and it says this is the end. Venezuela runs out of money to print new money. Back in February, when we commented on the unprecedented hyperinflation about the unleashed in the Latin American country, whose president just announced that he would expand the weekend for public workers to 5 days. So not only are they running out of money because of hyperinflation, but now there's only a 2-day work week in Venezuela, and we're going to talk about that. And here's the Venezuela annual inflation rate, and it's forecast this year to grow to 720%. And it goes on to say, we joke that it is unclear just where the country will find all the paper banknotes it needs for all its new physical currency. After all, central bank data shows Venezuela more than doubled the supply of 150 and 2 Bolivar notes in 2015 as it doubled monetary liquidity, including bank deposits. Supply has grown even as Venezuela has fewer U.S. dollars to support new Bolivars, a result of failing or falling oil prices. Then it goes on to say that the WSJ responded that millions of pounds of provisions stuffed into 36 747 cargo planes arrived here from countries around the world in recent months to serve Venezuela's crippled economy. But instead of food and medicine, the planes carried another resource that often runs scarce here: bills of Venezuela's currency, the Bolivar. Then it says the shipments were part of the import of at least 5 billion banknotes that President Nicolas Maduro's administration authorized over the latter half of 2015 as the government boosts the supply of the country's increasingly worthless currency, according to 7 people familiar with the deals. And because the inflation rate is so bad and the hyperinflation rate is so high in Venezuela, even if they were to print out more of these Bolivar notes, what that would only mean is more and more debt for Venezuela, more and more tensions when it comes to money. It even says the high cost of the printing binge is an especially heavy burden as Venezuela reels from the oil price collapse and 17 years of free spending socialist rule that have left state finances in shambles. Most countries around the world have outsourced banknote printing to private companies that can provide sophisticated anti-counterfeiting technologies like watermarks and security strips. What drives Venezuela's orders is the sheer volume and urgency of its currency needs. The central bank's own printing presses in the industrial city of Maracay don't have enough security paper and metal to print more than a small portion of the country's bills, the people familiar with the matter said. Their difficulties stem from the same dollar shortages that have plagued Venezuela's centralized economy as the Maduro administration struggles to pay for imports of everything, including cancer medication, toilet paper, and insect repellent to battle the mosquito-borne Zika virus. Yeah, because it comes from mosquitoes, doesn't it? Even though I've already proven that the Rockefellers fund it. It's all a big, big scam. Not only that, but here's what's even worse about this situation is that they, as in the elite, they know they have plenty of food. There's plenty of food for the entire world. There's plenty of water for the entire world. But what are they doing? They're trying to eliminate these resources from countries like Venezuela and other third world countries. Why? Because they're getting ready for the bigger agenda of UN 2030, Operation Depopulation. And it's no surprise that they're starting in places like Venezuela because they're trying to rev up and see and get reactions and test all this out before they bring this stuff to America and Europe. Yes, you heard me that it's only a matter of time until things like this and what's going on in Venezuela and the current crises there will be brought here to America, whether you want to hear that or not. Then it goes on to say, why not just print a single 100 million Bolivar note instead of 1 million 100 Bolivar bills? And then it goes on to say that Venezuela is spending a lot more than it needs because the government hasn't printed a higher denomination banknote, revealing a misplaced fear. Analysts say that doing so would implicitly acknowledge high inflation the government publicly denies. So case in point, what's the problem? That the more money they try to print out, the more inflation that it causes. And so that's exactly what they're trying to do. Then it goes on to say that the president in late December changed the law to give himself full control over the central bank, stripping congressional oversight, just as his political opponents took control of the National Assembly for the first time in 17 years. So as you can see, it's only getting worse. The dynamic is getting much, much worse. And the socialism is only getting worse. Socialism, communism, Bolshevism, all over again. And the effect of it is that it's affecting millions and millions and millions of people. There's hardly any resources because they're the ones staging it. They as in the elite, because they know exactly what they're doing, because they're going after the oil there. And it's only a matter of time until everything comes tumbling down. Now I'm here at Bloomberg as well, and Bloomberg says Venezuela doesn't have enough money to pay for its money. And it goes on to say Venezuela's epic shortages are nothing new at this point. No diapers or car parts or aspirin. It's all been well documented, but now the country is at risk of running out of money itself. Then it goes on to say, in a tale that highlights the chaos of unbridled inflation, Venezuela is scrambling to print new bills fast enough to keep up with the torrid pace of price increases. Most of the cash, like nearly everything else in the oil exporting country, is imported. Not only that, it says with hard currency reserves sinking to critically low levels, the central bank is doling out payments so slowly to foreign providers that they are foregoing further business. As you can see, and I hope you're seeing this, this is all a stage collapse. This is all controlled demolition, and they're starting with Venezuela. Why? Because they keep mentioning the oil there. Anytime a country has oil, the Zionists are going after it, and that's just the darn truth. You can see it with Syria, you can see it with Afghanistan, you can see it with Iran, you can see it with Iraq. It's no different, and this country is no different. Unless you comply, they are coming after you, and that's just the darn truth. But it goes on to say Venezuela, in other words, is now so broke that it may not have enough money to pay for its money. People, I hope you all are really seeing how important this really is and how big this really is. The fact that a country cannot have or support itself with enough money to pay for its own money. Not only that, but with all the other crises that are going on in this one place, it's only a matter of time until this becomes a trickling effect in the rest of the world. And I hope you're seeing that. And don't get it twisted. It's not just money that they're dealing with. It's not just hyperinflation. Oh, it goes much deeper than that. But it goes on to say that the story began last year when the government of President Nicolas Maduro tried to tamp down a growing currency shortfall. Multi-million-dollar orders were placed with a slew of currency makers ahead of December elections and holidays when Venezuelans thronged banks to cash their bonuses. And this goes on to say that the inflation is driving a huge increase in bills in circulation. It's only getting worse. And see, that is the scam of the Federal Reserve. What do? They all print out fake money, fake bills, fake notes. Then they loan them to the banks for what? Interest, so that we can be enslaved to the system more and more. And now they're the one, they as in the elite, they as in the Zionists, are now slowly starting to collapse the system altogether. And we're seeing its trickle effect, and we're seeing the bigger reaction. Because remember, problem, reaction, solution. They cause the problem by causing inflation to begin with, when there really is no inflation, but that's just what they're going to call it. And then they say the solution is, oh, well, the solution is you can either decide not to print out more money or come up with solutions from a socialist perspective. They're going to try to do anything they can to pacify the crowd and pacify the people, when they know darn well it's only going to get worse, when they also know that this is the goal of what? Depopulation. And they're going to try that any single way they can. And I just hope you are seeing that and seeing the bigger agenda for what it really is. Now, what we should also be thinking about is what type of effect is this going to have on not just the country itself, but the rest of the world, and as well as the people in Venezuela as well. Because here I am at Reuters, and it says Venezuela economic crisis means fewer meals, more starch. Did you hear that? It means fewer meals. That means not as much food, the food crises. And you can even look up different pictures of Venezuelan stores that'll even show you there are hardly any food in the stores to begin with. And you don't think they're bringing this to America? Oh, I suggest you seriously think again. But it goes on to say Venezuela's soaring prices and chronic shortages have left 65-year-old homemaker Alida Gonzalez struggling to put meals on the table. She and her 4 family members stores in the Caracas slum of Petare now routinely skip one meal per day and increasingly rely on starches to make up for proteins that are too expensive or just simply unavailable. With the money we used to spend on breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we can now only buy breakfast and not a very good one, said Gonzalez in her home, which on a recent day contained just a kilo of chicken, about a pound, 4 plantains, some cooking oil, a small packet of rice, and a mango. The family did not know when they would be able to buy more. And it says recession and a dysfunctional state-run economy are forcing many in the South American OPEC country of 30 million to reduce consumption and eat less balanced meal. Remember what I said, problem, reaction, solution, and more importantly, we're focusing today on the reaction, because we know darn well that they put Maduro in charge in the state-run economy, and they make it into a socialist state in order to cause recession, cause upheaval, cause chaos, and cause what? Food shortages and energy shortages and water shortages, when they have more than enough food and water. But of course, you can't make money off that. So they have to keep feeding us this story and keep feeding us the propaganda that, oh, they ran out. Oh, there's not enough. Oh, that's what they want us to believe. But it goes on to say, in a recent survey by researchers from 3 major universities, often critical of the government, 87% of the respondents said their income was insufficient to purchase food. The study of nearly 1,500 families found rising percentages of carbs in their diets and found that 12% of those interviews do not eat 3 meals a day. Now, this is what they're telling us. We know it's much worse than this. They're going to try to pacify us any way they can, but we know it's much worse than that. Now it goes on to say, government supporters have long pointed proudly to the improvement in eating under late socialist leader Hugo Chavez, who used oil income to subsidize food for the poor during its 14-year rule and won UN plaudits for it. Anytime you see the United Nations, some alarm bells should be ringing. But it goes on to talk about some other families who